At some point, every man realizes that being decent isn't always enough to protect you. People start to take your patience for weakness, your silence for agreement, and your loyalty for permission to use you. They don't always do it loudly, but they do it often. This video breaks down 7 reasons why people treat you like a fool, and what you can do to stop it. Not with rage, not with revenge, but with quiet strength and unwavering self-respect. If you're tired of being the one who gets overlooked, underestimated, or used, this is your wake-up call. Let's get into it. Reason number 1. You don't set boundaries. Imagine a man in his 40s, seasoned by years of work and responsibility. Each day, a colleague takes small liberties, borrows tools without asking, interrupts focused hours with idle talk, assumes access to things that aren't theirs. You say nothing, thinking it's easier that way. But bit by bit, something in you grows weary. Not from the act itself, but from the quiet erosion of your self-respect. This is what happens when limits go unspoken. People don't always mean harm, but when you don't draw the line, they won't know where it is. And over time, they stop looking for one. Boundaries aren't weapons, they're signposts. They don't shut the world out, they remind you of your place within it. When you fail to set them, what you're really saying is, my time, energy, and presence are up for grabs. And in doing so, you give others the blueprint to disregard you. A man who honors his limits commands quiet respect. He doesn't need to raise his voice. His standards speak for him. Saying no isn't rejection, it's clarity. It says, this is where I end, and where your responsibility begins. Think of your life like a cabin in the wilderness. Without a marked path or a door, anyone can barge in, trekking mud on the floor, taking without asking. But a man who builds clear thresholds around his space doesn't fear the world. He welcomes those who knock. Being liked is not the goal. Being grounded is. If someone values you, they'll understand the need for structure. If they resent it, they were never honoring your presence to begin with. Real strength isn't about being available to everyone. It's about being loyal to your priorities, your peace, and your purpose. You've earned the right to guard your time and choose who has access to it. That isn't cruelty. It's wisdom, born from years of knowing what matters and what no longer does. There comes a point in every man's life when he realizes that trust is not something to give away lightly. Perhaps you've learned it the hard way, by confiding in someone who wore a friendly face, only to watch that trust twisted, exposed, or discarded when it no longer served them. We're often told that trust is a virtue, that to be a good man is to give people the benefit of the doubt. But experience teaches otherwise. Trust, in truth, is not a virtue handed out. It is a reward earned over time. And for men who've weathered betrayal, loss, or manipulation, the cost of misplaced trust becomes something far greater than disappointment. It's the erosion of self-respect. Consider this. You meet someone who appears genuine. They say the right things, mirror your values, maybe even show up for you when it's convenient. But over time, something doesn't sit right. Promises fall flat. Their loyalty is selective. And then it hits you. You weren't seeing them for who they were. You were seeing who you hoped they were. This is the silent danger of trusting too quickly. It blinds you to what's actually there. It's not about being bitter. It's about becoming clear-eyed. There's no honor in being naive. Real wisdom is knowing that not everyone deserves access to your inner life, your plans, your vulnerability. For the mature man, trust isn't a doorway that swings open with every smile. It's a gate with a lock that opens slowly, deliberately, with time and proof. It is a quiet filter, not a loud declaration. Those who belong will understand your caution. Those who don't will call it coldness, because they were never meant to be let in to begin with. The Stoics believed that the wise man sees the world as it is, not as he wishes it to be. And nowhere is this more important than in how we choose who we allow into our lives. Actions must always outweigh appearances. Loyalty must outweigh words. Look around. Who in your life has remained solid when things got uncomfortable? Who follows through without needing to be watched? That's where your trust belongs. Protecting your trust doesn't make you closed off. It makes you responsible. A man cannot afford to leave the gates of his life unguarded, not when so much is at stake: your peace, your time, your energy, and your legacy. Remember, it is far easier to grant access than it is to repair what someone breaks once inside. Trust, in the hands of the wrong person, becomes a weapon. In the hands of the right one, it becomes the foundation of something unshakable. The choice, always, is yours. Number 2, you seek validation from others. There's a quiet crisis many men endure, but few talk about it openly. It's not about failure or weakness. It's about the invisible habit of measuring your value through someone else's eyes. You look to your boss, your partner, your peers, waiting for a nod, a word, a sign that you're enough. But the more you depend on others to affirm your worth, the further you drift from your own center. This isn't ambition. It isn't humility. It's dependency in disguise. At first, it seems harmless, natural even. We all want to be acknowledged. A man works hard and hopes someone notices. He provides for his family and silently waits for gratitude. He sacrifices sleep, time, even health, not for joy, but to be seen, praised, validated. And when that recognition doesn't come, something in him begins to crumble. Not loudly, quietly. Doubt creeps in. He questions his purpose, wonders if he's doing enough. The applause he never receives becomes proof, in his mind, that he's falling short, even when he's giving his all. This is the trap of external validation. It ties your self-worth to someone else's perception. And the moment you do that, you surrender your peace. You hand the steering wheel of your identity to people who may never understand what you carry or what it costs you to keep going. A man cannot lead his life by applause. True strength, quiet, immovable strength, comes when you begin to approve of yourself. Not with arrogance, but with clarity. You stop performing. You start evaluating your life based on principles, not popularity. You stop asking, "Do they see me?" and begin asking, "Am I living by what I believe?" When you no longer rely on validation to feel good, something powerful happens. The people who once controlled you with their approval lose that grip. The silence no longer stings. The absence of praise no longer shakes your foundation. You become rooted. A man who respects himself doesn't wait for permission to feel worthy. He stands firm because his values are firm. He doesn't need to be clapped for when he walks into a room. He brings his own weight with him. You become your own witness. You say, "I showed up. I did what mattered." That is enough. This isn't about shutting people out or pretending you don't care. It's about finally recognizing that the most important relationship in your life, the one that sets the tone for everything else, is the one you have with yourself. So stop waiting to be told you're good enough. Stop adjusting your course every time someone with no map questions your direction. You are not a product to be rated. You are a man in motion, flawed, growing, building something real. When you learn to affirm your own path, you become free. Not because the world starts clapping, but because you stop needing it to. That's the moment you begin living like a man, not a reflection. Number 3, you stay silent when disrespected. There's a lie many men have been sold, quietly, over decades. It says that holding your tongue is the mark of maturity, that if someone crosses a line, the real man walks away with a smile, choosing peace over conflict. But peace built on silence isn't peace at all. It's a slow erosion of the self. Think back to a moment where someone diminished you. Maybe it was subtle, a sarcastic jab from a friend, a colleague who dismissed your input in a meeting, or a partner who mocked your vulnerability. You felt that sting deep in your gut, not because you're weak, but because something sacred was brushed aside, your dignity. But instead of responding, you stayed quiet. You told yourself you were being composed, that it wasn't worth the fight, that you were choosing the high road. But was it really composure? Or was it fear of being seen as difficult? Fear of rocking the boat? Or worse, fear of confrontation that might reveal just how much you'd been compromising? Here's the truth. Silence can be noble, but it can also be a prison. And when it becomes your default response to disrespect, you don't rise, you disappear. Disrespect that goes unchecked becomes habit, for the one who delivers it, and for the one who absorbs it. You teach others how to treat you, not through words, but through what you tolerate. If there are no consequences, there are no boundaries. And without boundaries, you don't have a self. You have a shadow. But here's where the real damage takes place. In you. Not in the insult itself, but in the fact that you said nothing. You walk away, but you carry it with you. You play the scene back in your mind. You imagine what you should have said. And in that loop, day after day, you lose a little more of your fire. A man over 35 has lived long enough to know that life doesn't hand out respect. You claim it. You enforce it. Not with volume, not with aggression, but with unshakable clarity. There's a quiet authority that comes from a man who looks someone in the eye and says, "I don't accept that." No yelling, no threats, just presence. This isn't about reacting to every slight. It's about recognizing the difference between humility and self-erasure. It's about drawing a line, not in anger, but in self-possession. And it matters more now than ever, because the older you get, the more those moments compound. Stay silent too long, and one day you'll wake up feeling like a stranger in your own life, resentful, tired, wondering where your edge went. But it's not gone. It's waiting. The man you were meant to be is not the man who gets stepped on with a forced grin. He's the one who knows his worth so clearly that others feel it without him needing to shout. He defends himself, not to win an argument, but to preserve something far more important: his integrity. Use your voice, not to hurt, not to prove, but to affirm that you exist on your own terms, that you're no one's doormat, that you still carry weight. Because the world doesn't stop disrespecting you when you stay quiet. It stops when you finally decide that your silence is no longer for sale. There's a quiet truth many men avoid confronting. The fear of being alone doesn't come from solitude itself. It comes from what solitude reveals. We don't fear the absence of others. We fear facing ourselves when no one else is around to distract us from the parts we haven't yet understood or accepted. This fear keeps men tethered to things that no longer serve them. They stay in relationships that have long since gone hollow, not out of love, but out of habit and fear. They stay in rooms where they feel unseen, in jobs that drain the soul, in friendships that take more than they give, all to avoid the uncertainty that comes with stepping out on their own. There's a narrative we've absorbed, often without realizing it, that a man without a tribe is somehow incomplete. But that's a false inheritance. True growth begins the moment you stop running from your own company. Because if the only thing keeping you somewhere is the fear of walking away, then you're already alone in every way that matters. Solitude isn't punishment. It's a mirror. And most men avoid it because deep down, they're afraid of what they'll see when the noise dies down. The masks, the compromises, the version of themselves they've outgrown but haven't yet left behind. But here's what changes everything. Solitude, when chosen, becomes power. It's no longer exile. It's retreat. It's the space in which you recalibrate your values, rebuild your direction, and remind yourself that your worth has never depended on being surrounded. A man who learns to enjoy his own company becomes immovable. He's no longer motivated by fear of being left out, ignored, or unloved. He walks away not because he doesn't care, but because he knows he must. He stops clinging to roles that require him to shrink. He refuses to compromise his peace just to keep a seat at the wrong table. And in that decision, something extraordinary happens. His life begins to attract the kind of people, opportunities, and clarity that only come when he is no longer negotiating his value. Loneliness isn't cured by proximity. It's cured by presence, the kind you give to yourself when you stop depending on others to validate your existence. Ask yourself, are you truly afraid of being alone? Or are you afraid of meeting the man you've become after years of bending, adjusting, and accommodating? Most men who fear solitude haven't yet experienced the kind of solitude that heals. The kind where you walk in as a man uncertain of himself and walk out with a spine straighter, a mind clearer, and a heart finally beating in rhythm with your own convictions. Don't let the fear of empty rooms chain you to a life that drains you. The emptiness you fear isn't emptiness at all. It's potential. It's the raw, quiet space where you finally reclaim your voice, your time, your power. Stand alone, not as a rejection of others, but as a reclamation of yourself. And when you do, you'll find that the man who walks through the world on his own terms is never truly alone. He's simply free. Number 4, there's a difference between forgiveness and forgetting who you are. Many men pride themselves on their ability to forgive. We're taught that to let go is to rise above. To turn the other cheek is to be wise. But what if your forgiveness has stopped being a strength and started becoming your weakness? Somewhere along the way, you learned to confuse peacekeeping with peace of mind. You convinced yourself that forgiving someone over and over, despite the repetition of betrayal or disappointment, was an act of nobility. That swallowing your hurt made you more mature. That silence in the face of wrongdoing somehow made you the better man. But does it? Or has your forgiveness simply become a way to avoid discomfort, confrontation, or the hard truth that some people do not deserve continued access to your life? Forgiveness is not meant to be a revolving door. It's not meant to be handed out like spare change. When someone repeatedly disrespects you, apologizes with words, then returns to the same behavior, they're not seeking forgiveness. They're seeking freedom from consequence. And if you keep granting it, you become complicit in your own erosion. This isn't about revenge. It's not about punishment. It's about standards and what it says about a man when he lacks them. If someone can violate your trust again and again, with nothing more than a hollow "I'm sorry" in return, they haven't changed. They've simply learned that your boundaries don't matter. Letting go of anger is one thing. That's inner work. That's healing. But letting someone stay in your life when their actions show no real growth, that's not forgiveness. That's self-abandonment dressed up as virtue. A man of depth, of age, of scars earned through hard years, knows that forgiveness must be accompanied by a reckoning. Words mean nothing without action. Regret is not the same as responsibility. And change, real, lasting change, reveals itself in behavior, not in promises. You are not required to give endless chances to people who treat your kindness like currency they can spend at will. You are not less of a man for saying, "That was enough." In fact, you may finally be becoming one. Forgiveness, properly understood, is not something you give to let them off the hook. It's something you do to remove yourself from their chaos. It is not weakness. It is a boundary. And sometimes, the most powerful thing a man can do is forgive someone from a distance, and then close the door behind them. So ask yourself, are you truly offering forgiveness? Or are you avoiding the fallout of drawing a line that should have been drawn long ago? Because real peace isn't found in endlessly forgiving people who don't change. It's found in respecting yourself enough to walk away when they don't. That's not cruelty, that's clarity. And it's time you made the difference. Number 5, you see the best in everyone. There's a quiet trap that mature men fall into, not because they're naive, but because they've lived long enough to know what people could be. You've seen potential in others. You've seen what they're capable of when they're at their best. And so, when someone disappoints you repeatedly, you don't walk away. You hold on to that brighter version of them, the one that showed up once in a while, long enough to convince you they were worth your patience. But the truth is, what someone does consistently is who they are, not who they say they are, not who you believe they might become. And still, you stay. You rationalize. You replay their excuses in your head until they sound reasonable. They're just under pressure. They didn't mean it. They'll change. But how long have you been saying that? What you're calling belief might actually be fear. Fear of letting go. Fear of confronting the fact that you invested years, or decades, in someone who never truly showed up. Fear that walking away means you were wrong. But being wrong about someone isn't failure. Staying wrong about them is. There's a cost to seeing people only for their potential. It blinds you to patterns. It keeps you anchored to dysfunction, waiting for someone to become the man or woman they keep promising they are. Meanwhile, your energy drains. Your standards drop. Your peace becomes a casualty of your own loyalty. The Stoic man isn't without compassion, but he knows the difference between mercy and martyrdom. He doesn't close his eyes to reality just because it's uncomfortable. He doesn't keep feeding hope into a fire that only ever burns him. Reality doesn't care how much you want someone to be better. It only reflects what they consistently choose to be. If someone has lied, manipulated, or taken advantage of your goodness over and over again, it's not a question of their intentions. It's a reflection of their character. And if you refuse to accept that, then the pain is no longer their fault. It's yours. Because once you've seen the truth, staying blind to it becomes a choice. Seeing clearly doesn't mean becoming cynical. It means being grounded. You can still wish someone well without making them part of your future. You can still respect the humanity in them without handing them access to your peace. There comes a time in every man's life when he has to stop confusing emotional endurance with wisdom. Just because you can tolerate someone's behavior doesn't mean you should. Just because you once saw greatness in them doesn't mean it's your job to wait around while they ignore it. Life is too short to spend it trying to convince others to become who they've already shown they're not ready to be. So take a hard look at the people around you, not through the lens of who they could become, but through the truth of who they are today. Are they aligned with your values? Do they show respect, honesty, consistency? Not once, but regularly? If the answer is no, then you already know what you need to do. Not because you've given up on them, but because you've finally stopped giving up on yourself. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If something in it spoke to you, take a moment to leave a comment below. Your thoughts matter, and your voice might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. If you found value here and want more content that speaks to strength, clarity, and personal growth, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. There's more to come, and every step forward starts with a decision to grow. Until next time, stay grounded, stay clear, and never forget the power you hold.